Hey everybody, welcome to the last episode of my three-part series of the 30 things I learned before I turned 30. For those of you just tuning in, you might want to go back to part 1 or part 2, but I mean each part is a standalone episode, so you don't need to necessarily go back. And for those that don't know, I recently turned 30, and this is basically a list of the 30 things, the 30 biggest lessons learned from the last 30 years. Every year for the last 5-6 years or so, at the end of the year, I do a review. I look at how I spent my time, what was good, what was bad, what could be improved, all these different things, and I look at what are the biggest lessons learned. So what I did is I compiled all those into this podcast. So before we get started, I want to give you a little bit of an update on what's been going on with me since we last talked. For those of you that don't watch the YouTube channel, I definitely recommend checking it out. I've been putting a lot of effort into vlogging. One thing, and this, I don't know if this lesson's going to come up or if it already did come up. One thing is I've been kind of maybe putting too much effort into it. And I've been, I think that they come out very well. Like I spent a lot of time editing them, but it's become a little draining. When I was first starting to do the vlogs, it was a lot of fun. Now I'm not enjoying it quite as much as I was. But the solution might be to basically script it a little bit less, because I was writing out lines for me to say and all this kind of stuff. And a lot of it was off the cuff, but there was certain points that I wanted to hit. Truth is, I enjoy talking, and I think I can do a decent job of ad-libbing more or less. So I'm going to be experimenting with different vlog styles. Definitely, please give me feedback on what you like, what you don't like. Some other things to note you might see in the background if you're watching on YouTube. We got a Christmas tree. That'll be in a vlog episode coming up as well. And I think something I want to make clear actually is I'm going to be coming out with a new course soon. It's going to be called probably the Passion Product Formula, or something to do with Passion Product System. Who knows what the name's going to be yet. It's going to be a beta course. Basically, I'm going to take 10 people and those 10, and only 10 people, and those 10 people are going to get all my attention in addition to access to the beta version of the course. Obviously, the course will not be fully finished when they start, but I'll be working with them to create it. So they'll get access to the beta version. They'll get 2 one-on-one consulting sessions with me, hour-long consulting sessions. But maybe most importantly of all, they're going to get 6 group calls. We'll probably do one every other week or once. We'll figure out the time that works for everybody. But 6 group calls. That's where me and all 10 of the people get on a call and they can ask me questions. I can, get into more detail about anything. Basically, I want to make it as clear as possible. These 10 people that sign up, I'm going to do everything I can in my power to make sure that they succeed in internet marketing. So this is, and right now the price is probably going to be like $497. So it's really not a bad deal considering it's going to come with 6 group coaching calls, 2 one-on-one sessions with me, and the course itself, which is going to end up being probably $1,000 course. I'll probably end up even throwing in some other bonuses. I might even throw in other courses that I've done in the past. So stay tuned for that. I'm looking at a tentative launch date of January 8th. And part of the reason I'm telling you this is this is one of the goals. I think this might actually end up leading into the first. I think it'll lead into the first lesson learned that I have to talk about, which is create an end goal. And I'll get to that in just a second. But I want to launch this course, this beta version of the course, January 8th. I got a lot of work to do till then. And if you remember from the previous episode, or maybe the first episode I did, I tend to work really hard on one area, one business, and then get burnt out. I'm starting to get a little burnt out on effective e-commerce, to be honest with you, because I have been putting so much energy into it and so much effort, and it's been paying off, but it never pays off as fast as you want. And I'm going to take another piece of advice from myself and sit back and let it grow a little bit. And if you remember, that's basically, you can do all the work planting all the seeds, but eventually at some point you got to let it grow. So I've been putting out a lot of really good content, working really hard, but I kind of need to relax a little bit and let my YouTube channel grow. But I still have this goal of January 8th launching the beta version of the course. So I do have a lot of work to do from now until then. So just to let you know, that's what's going on. I might end up taking some, probably not for a little while. I think the next podcast series I'm going to do as well, so this is another little update, is I'm going to get Ariana on the podcast, and I'm going to interview her, probably like a 6, 7, 8 part series about how it was launching a passion product. And this will tie in perfectly, perfect timing with launching the passion product course, obviously. But once again, I just want to reiterate, guys, if you have interest in making money online, this is going to be a great opportunity. This passion product course, passion product formula course, whatever I end up naming it, I'm going to put so much effort into every single person. That's why I'm only going to have it as 10 people, because I'm going to put so much effort into these 10 people that I will do anything it takes for them to succeed. So keep an eye out for that. I'll probably do like a 1 week sale, $500 or $497 actually, because that's how you got to do it. You got to do the $497, and it's going to come with a lot. So now that I talked about all that kind of stuff for the first few minutes of this episode, let's get into the actual stuff. So the 21st lesson learned I have is create an end goal. And I know for me personally, I need some kind of specific end goal. Otherwise, I just am kind of floating around. So let me give you a few different stories here. With Performance Nut Butter, I had two different end goals. The first end goal was to launch the Kickstarter and hit $51,000, or $50,000, I forget the exact number, $50,000 on the Kickstarter. I didn't do that. I only hit $15,000. But the truth is, my real end goal was to make $300 a day passive income. I did do that. I started making $300 a day passive income. So I felt like it was a little bit of the universe saying, hey, that $50,000 for the Kickstarter you wanted was a completely arbitrary number and it doesn't make any sense. But what does make sense is you want this goal of $300 a day. You've wanted it for a long time. We're going to give that to you. The last few months, I've been kind of floating around a little bit. I've been enjoying my life a lot more, but at the same time, I haven't had a specific end goal. And for a while, I had a few different end goals. I wanted to hit 100K revenue for Performance Nut Butter, and I wanted to start, the course. But what I realized is I was splitting my attention too much. So for the next month, my only goal is to get everything ready for the launch of the Passion Product Formula course. That's it. Like that. That's what I'm focused on. I do have some things for Performance Nut Butter I do need to get done. Some of them are a little hush-hush. I'll talk about it in the future. And as a side note, if you've noticed, I have taken a little break from Performance Nut Butter vlogs, and that's for a few different reasons, but one of the big ones is because I have been documenting Ariana's journey with Vino cards. And if you haven't checked that out yet, definitely go check it out. We just spent a lot of time and effort on the latest vlog episode. I think it was on product research. You'll see a picture of Ariana and it'll say Amazon product research. Okay, so next up we got lesson 22. Produce something you're proud of. So if you followed my YouTube channel, my podcast, not so much on the podcast, I think more on the YouTube channel, and you go back to some of the videos I've made, they were terrible. And I pumped out a lot of really bad quality content, in my opinion. And part of that was just testing. I was throwing spaghetti against the wall. And I do think that is important to know when to throw spaghetti against the wall. But now I'm shifting and I want to start producing more stuff that I'm proud of. There's obviously a balance. You don't want to necessarily always be a perfectionist, because then you'll never release, your YouTube video, your podcast, your book, whatever the thing is that you're trying to produce. But I think that when I look at the 80-20 of what videos have done the best for me on YouTube, a lot of them have been videos that I spent a lot of time on and I'm very proud of. Now, of course, some of the spaghetti did stick. Some of the videos I produced that I really wasn't that proud of, that I thought were just kind of mediocre, did really well. And this is a common thing. And you find patterns within that. For me, I found, if you go on my YouTube channel, you can probably find the patterns yourself, but there's certain styles of videos that I do that do really well. And by throwing the spaghetti against the wall, I realized that these certain types of videos do well. And so I can go back and redo them or do other videos similar to that style, but be proud of it. And I look at why my YouTube channel hasn't had as strong of a following as some of the other people. There's a lot of YouTubers out there that every video they release, even though they have the same number of subscribers as I, but every video they release, they get, 2,000 views. And part of it is because each of their videos are high quality. I've released some mediocre quality videos, and I think I've scared a lot of my audience into not wanting to watch my video. Like, they stop watching me because they're like, oh, he doesn't produce that good of stuff. So from now on, I'm trying to produce only things that I'm proud of. At the same time, it's definitely a balance. You want to work fast and you want to throw some spaghetti at the wall to test. So this is tough, but this has been a big lesson learned for me, that I want to produce more things that I'm proud of. So this ties in perfectly to lesson number 23, and that is done is better than perfect. So yes, take your time, try to make things that are really good, but at the end of the day, finishing something and completing it is better than it being perfect and never being let out into the world. So just keep that principle in mind. Lesson 24, you are this is totally off the subject, but you are an experiment of one. What do I mean by this? So you hear a lot of times in studies, they say, 60% of people that eat a certain fruit end up getting fat. Well, if you like that fruit and you're not getting fat from it, it doesn't matter that 60% of the people did. So a lot of studies and a lot of research you hear on TV and etc., they say, this makes you this, or this does this to you. But what you have to remember is if they say that, this food makes you fat, it's because for 60% of people it does. That means that there's 40% of people that it doesn't make fat. An even better example is, let's say they're doing a cancer treatment, and they have a cancer treatment that does better than a placebo. Let's say they have 100 people that take a placebo and 100 people that try out some kind of treatment. And of the 100 people that try out the treatment, only, one actually end up surviving the cancer. Let's say it's like a deadly terminal cancer, and, only one person, or let's say nobody survives the placebo. Well, they would say that, that's not significantly, that one person isn't statistically significant, that treatment maybe doesn't work. But the truth is, to that one person that survived cancer because of that treatment, it does work. And this is the way a lot of studies work. I think there's a book called Bad Science, I believe is the name of it, that talks a lot more about this. But specifically what I mean by this is you're going to hear a lot of people say this is the optimal diet, or this is the best way to live. But the truth is, all that matters is what is the best way for you to live. And this is a repeating theme in this podcast series. Figure out what works for you, and everyone else, I don't care what they have to say. Lesson 25, listen to your body. So there's a lot of different elements to this. One is you got to make sure your body is happy and healthy. I think a lot of people end up neglecting their body in multiple different ways. Sometimes I think people neglect their body by not eating healthy or not exercising. But on the other end of the spectrum, some people torture their body by, running marathons after marathon, and maybe, just beating their body up in different ways. Maybe that's at the gym. I think it's important to respect your body and actually listen to it. Is it in pain? Because if it's in pain, if your body's in pain, and I've experienced a lot of pain in my life, in my body, that's your body trying to say something to you. It might not always be super obvious what it's saying, but you need to listen to it and figure out why does my back hurt? Maybe your back hurts because you're sitting down all day at a job you don't like. Because the truth is, if you absolutely love what you're doing, you're going to have a different posture. You're going to have a different way of sitting down, and your back's not going to hurt. I find that when I do work that I don't enjoy, my back hurts a lot more than when I'm completely, we've all had these experiences of being completely engaged in the moment. When you stand up after something like that, your back doesn't usually hurt. Another thing, then this is really funny, I've noticed, and I haven't talked about this too much, I don't think, but I've noticed, so I've had some hip issues. My left hip has some pain at times. And what I found is when I start to get angry, let's say angry at my girlfriend for being her emotional self and not being logical, and I start to really dig in my heels and become very logical, my left hip starts to hurt. And there's like this whole holistic, hippie reasons behind why the left hip is supposed to be your feminine side and blah, blah, blah. But I don't really care. All I know is I notice a difference. I start to notice when I'm acting in ways that I don't want to, sometimes my body will communicate with me and my shoulder might be in pain, and it's a sign to myself, hey, take a step back and change up what you're doing. So one thing I recommend, obviously exercise, eat healthy, but also yoga, meditation are really good. Yoga I really like, and just stretching, just spending some time. Something that's been big for me is spending an hour or two, maybe it doesn't have to even be every day, but let's say like 2 hours. I love this. This is one of the things I'll do. I'll go spend 2 hours, listen to an audiobook, and just stretch and just feel what it's like to be in my body. And maybe I'll go down to the beach and do that and just kind of move and just like stretch and breathe a little bit, and it's very, very enjoyable. So I highly recommend doing that. Lesson 26, enjoy the journey. So I feel like this is something you hear a lot over and over again, and I know it can be very hard to do as an entrepreneur, just in life in general. So I found with myself that I really do enjoy the journey, especially if it has an end point. Because if I don't have some kind of an end goal, I don't know when to celebrate. I don't know when to stop, but if it has some kind of an end goal, then I know, okay, I've hit that goal. It's time to relax for a little bit. It's time to celebrate. So I do enjoy the journey if there's some kind of an end point. So for Chicago, when I was living in Chicago, and for those that don't know, I had a corporate job in Chicago. I lived there for 2 years. It had no end point because basically when I had a corporate job, I knew for the next 40, 50 years, I was just going to be in that job. There was no, eventually I'm going to retire. That's my end point, was just waiting for the pain to go away. There was no, I could have had the goal to be a CEO, but that's silly. Because that wasn't congruent with who I am. Because even once I'm CEO, that just means I got to still work for another 30 years. Sure, I make more money, but who cares? So for me, not having that endpoint with my corporate job led me into a pretty bad depression. And I'm not someone that uses the word depression lightly. I've never really been, I've never been diagnosed clinically, blah, 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 but it was freaking terrible. I mean, I'm pretty sure that was the definition of depression. It was like all the energy in life was sucked out of me. And I think it's because I have all this energy, I have all this drive, but if I don't have a direction to put the drive into, I get, either anxiety or depression. So I think at first it'd be maybe anxiety, but then if I don't find some kind of use for that anxiety, my body just says, okay, cool, we're going to regulate your dopamine, we're going to down regulate your serotonin because you're not using it, so it's a waste of us to make it, basically. So I think with any kind of career, with any kind of journey, you do need an endpoint, and that's the only way you're going to be able to enjoy it. Now, I do think the endpoint for any kind of journey or any kind of goal can be, hey, I'm going to keep doing this until I stop enjoying it. But for me personally, I think that creates kind of an addictive behavior because then you jump from one thing to another to another. So I think by having a very specific end goal, and it's okay that if it's not going well to take a break, it's okay to come back later. As I talked about in a previous lesson, I do like ratcheting systems. So for instance, for me right now, worst case scenario with effective e-commerce, if I decided I'm going to take a few months off and I'm going to focus on performance nut butter instead, and I'm going to come back and create the passion product formula beta course, that'd be fine. Right now, I have the goal of launching it January 8th because I just want to do it. I want to get it started. I want to get it done, and I want to start helping people. But the worst case scenario, if I said, you know what, I'm going to work on performance nut butter until I get burnt out of that and then come back to this, that'd be totally okay. So next up, we got lesson 27, and this is Yin and Yang and the power of the Yin and the Yang. So this is something I've struggled with a lot. So Yin is kind of that relaxed nature, and then Yang is the doing force. And I think I've probably talked about this in a previous episode. My girlfriend is very much yin and I'm very much yang, and like we're on opposite ends of the spectrum. I constantly am looking for ways to improve myself, to be more. And she is constantly in the mode of she's enough, that everything's good enough. And neither are good or bad, but you kind of do need both, because if you're constantly doing and trying to be better, but you never say, hey, I actually am enough, you're never going to enjoy life. And in my opinion, if you're constantly just in that mindset of I'm enough, I don't need to be better, that's actually a really beautiful place to be. But at the same time, you're never going to move up in the world. There's going to be, the way I talk about it sometimes is, I feel like I could be at an 8 or a 9 and it's not enough. I want to be at a 10. And I feel like Ariana, on the other hand, could be at a 2 and she'll be okay with it. Like she doesn't need to move up to a 3 because she's like, yeah, it's a 2, but whatever. I still enjoy it. So, in an ideal world, you'd want some kind of a balance there, because if you are at a 2, it's pretty easy to make something into a 5, 6, 7, 8 on the happiness scale. But the yin and the yang are very important. It's also very much important, something I haven't thought, or up until recently, didn't put a lot of emphasis into, is to have a lot of doing and power and energy, you need that relaxing side. You need that other side. A story, and I think my dad might even listen to this podcast, but I noticed with my dad, it seems like he's always doing stuff. He's busy. He's fixing things. And I kind of, in my down moments when I'm like tired on a Sunday afternoon, I'll think about how, man, my dad on a Sunday afternoon would just be like fixing things, and like he's very active, and that kind of bothered me for a long time until the last month or two. I realized, yeah, except for he lays around for hours at a time. So my dad will lay outside tanning for hours. Like he'll lay by the pool and just relaxing. And that's what he loves to do. So what I realized is he's either completely yin or completely yang. He doesn't have this in between. And I find myself more often than I would like in that in-between zone where I'm not fully relaxed, but I'm not really working at my full potential. So the lesson learned there is either be fully yin or fully yang whenever possible. In some ways, there's always different ways to look at this. What I guess a better way is if you are burnt out, that's okay. Give yourself permission to be fully relaxed because that probably means that you were fully doing for a long time. Let's jump into lesson 28. Ooh, this is a big one. This is a really good one. All right. So this one, I almost got a tattoo. I don't think I talked about this before. I almost got a tattoo of this. I don't know how close I actually was, but if I were to get a tattoo of something, this would have been what it is. So what it would be is the phi, the symbol phi, the Greek letter phi, with an electron dispersion field in the middle. And there's a few different reasons why. So what this represents to me, and I'll go into more detail about this. I don't know if I talked about this in a previous episode, actually, but what this represents to me is nothing is fully solvable. No matter how hard you try to solve something in life, you can't. And that's what the electron dispersion field represents to me. So electron dispersion field basically shows the probability that an electron is in any one location. Now, it's only a probability. If you try to find where an electron is, you can't use math to figure it out. It's not fully solvable. No matter how much math you do, you can't figure out exactly where an electron will be. And that's freaking crazy. When you think about everything else, like in our life, is solvable by physics. So when you look at physics, for a long time they thought, okay, well, this is how everything is. They didn't really think about it much. Then Isaac Newton came along and said, actually, there's some rules behind this. And Isaac Newton pretty much kind of had the attitude, oh, I solved everything. Like this is all the math. Then Einstein came along and said, no, actually, theory of relativity, it's way more complicated than that. But now I have it all solved. And then quantum physics came along and said, actually, none of us have any idea how to do this. Here's some basic principles, but it all comes down to probability. And if you look at the evolution of our thought on atoms, for a long time we thought that atoms were, earth, wind, fire. I think there's another one I'm blanking on right now. Earth, wind, fire, water. Those are the four elements. Everything is made up of those. Then we eventually had atoms, and we said, oh, everything's actually made up of these atoms. And then we realized that there's protons, electrons, and neutrons. And then we realized that there's quarks that make up those protons. And then we realized even more stuff, and we realized that it's more complicated. And what I've realized is, as you try to figure out anything in life, it becomes more and more complex. And I almost feel like the universe gives us this weird thing of like, yeah, you can try to figure something out, but the more you dive in deeper and deeper and deeper, it's going to become more and more complex. And no matter how hard you try to solve something, you're never fully going to be able to solve it. It's always going to come down to a probability. At least this is the current understanding. The other part of that is, even if we do think we end up solving physics at some point in the future, throughout history, they continue to think they have it solved, and then some weird little thing shows up that they don't understand, and they realize, oh no, we have no idea how the universe works. So it's a good reminder for me that in life, maybe I think I have entrepreneurship fully understood, but no, there's always more and deeper levels to go. And what you need to do is you need to figure out, okay, I think I have 80% of entrepreneurship down. I'm pretty confident if I start a new business, 80% likelihood that I can make money. That's good enough. You can continue to try to go deeper and deeper and deeper, but I think the universe makes it more complex as you try harder. And just keep that in mind. No matter what you're trying to solve in life, you're never going to be able to figure out it in your head. You're going to eventually have to make a decision based on your best guess. And I drove myself a little bit crazy. I drove myself a lot crazy before I quit my job, trying to figure out the universe and life and all this kind of stuff. And this was what kind of saved me, was this idea that, hey, I can't solve this. Stop. Because if you ponder the meaning of life and you ponder how the universe works and all this kind of stuff, you will drive yourself crazy. So understanding that it's not fully solvable is a very beautiful thing to keep in mind. Lesson 29, work on what excites you. There's so much interesting stuff behind this. I worked with a life coach style person, and this was a message that he gave to me is like, hey, do what excites you. And like the universe has a way of rewarding you, and everything has a way of kind of working out when you do things that excite you. And I've found this to be true over and over again. And honestly, when you do things that excite you, it's just life's more fun. Now, there's definitely some gray areas here on, what's meant by an exciting life. But to me, what this means is you shouldn't be grinding all the time. You should be doing things that you're really happy with and proud of. Now, sometimes there's more money doing other things, but you got to ask yourself, is life just about the money? Because it isn't. I mean, it definitely isn't. Money's a tool and money helps. And sometimes it's worth going through a little bit of a struggle to make, a lot of money that's going to help make your life a lot better. But when you work on things that excite you, I feel like I'm getting super hippie and metaphysical in this episode, but that's okay. I really believe that when you work on things that excite you, it's like the universe is giving you this extra energy, and things just have a way of working out and falling into place. And it's really beautiful. I've done this a number of different times randomly. I mean, some of the YouTube videos I've worked on that I'm really proud of, it didn't feel like work. It felt like it was just happening through me. It was just really, it was really easy to do that work. And I think back to when we were kids, we would do things, we'd get things done a lot of times, and it wasn't work. It was play. It was fun. It was easy. I used to film videos actually with some of my friends. I'd film videos with my friends, and I never thought, oh, this is a grind. No, I thought that this is a blast. Like, we're having such a good time. And then we'd produce something and we'd get better over time and over time. I want to harness more of that energy. And I think everybody listening to this podcast should make an effort to harness that energy, to play more, to have more fun with what you're doing. And I've been trying to do that with the vlogs. And I think I start to get very critical of myself, and it becomes tougher and tougher to do that. So this is something I'm going to take to heart, and I'm going to start playing more with the vlog. So hopefully I'll start enjoying it. This is actually, doing this podcast has helped me talking about this. So that's one thing. There was this guy that I listened to, and it's super out there. I'm not recommending this to 99% of you guys because you're going to think I'm crazy. His name is Bashar. It's Bashar. He's a channeler. He says he channels basically like an alien from the future. I don't care about that part. What he says, though, his message outside the whole alien stuff is very interesting. He talks about when you do what excites you, like excitement is basically the excitement you feel inside is a measure of how close you are to the path that you're supposed to lead. And he says that that's the universe like giving you energy to do it. And it sounds hippie as I say it. He says it in a much more eloquent way than I can possibly say it here. But I kind of believe it because, and maybe it doesn't always happen right away. Maybe I work on a vlog video that really excites me and that video flops. Work on another one that really excites me and that video flops. And I keep doing this and it doesn't work. But in the meantime, I'm gaining these skills. And then in the future, I create some other video with a friend or whatever. And I have all these skills already that I've rehearsed, and I can do a really good job on that future one. So it's not always black and white how these things work out, but harness that energy, do what excites you. Whew. All right, so this is a lot of information, guys. This will be the last point I make here, and then I'll read all 30 of the lessons learned. And ultimately, I'm going to, after this, we're going to go back into more of a traditional podcast style. So I hope you guys enjoy this. Obviously, please email me, travis@effectivecommerce.com if you do like this style. And if you don't, just, keep that to yourself. No, I'm just kidding. Like, let me know, what styles I do that you like. Just be nice about it. All right. Lesson 30 in the last lesson. And this is such a hard one to remember, but it's love life. Love your freaking life. Like there's, in the last few years, a lot of the time I haven't put enough effort into this of actually loving my life. When you think about like this idea of I love my life and I'm going to continue to love my life, your whole life changes. Everything you do with a different reason and a different purpose. So really work on how can you love life? Life is supposed to be fun. You're supposed to enjoy it. I talked about this in a How to Do Your 20s episode, actually. One of the questions I'll ask myself a lot, I don't know if I've talked about this before. One of the questions I'll ask myself a lot is if this was a video game, if I knew without a doubt that I was stuck in a video game right now, sure, I'm going to still have to, like, all the consequences apply. You know, if I do something bad, I'm still going to go to jail and it's still going to be really negative. But at the end of it, I'm going to wake up. I'm going to wake up and I'm going to get to do it again if I want to. If I knew that, how would I do my life? Now, I wouldn't run around and do a bunch of crazy stuff because I still have all these consequences. But at the same time, I wouldn't do the things I hate. I wouldn't feel so bad. I wouldn't hate my life. So I really think that if you keep this in mind, if you really dread doing something, you don't need to do it. For instance, I did a lot of jujitsu, and I started dreading it. I stopped enjoying going, and so I took a break. I ended up joining a different gym, and funny enough, they do have a jujitsu program there as well. And you know what? I started missing it. And so I started doing the jujitsu classes recently. I've been doing more jujitsu classes, and I love it again. But, for that one gym, I stopped enjoying it. There was people in there that I didn't really enjoy. Some of the class format wasn't always my favorite. Like, there were some reasons. And I feel like that's another example of the universe saying, and when I say the universe, it could also be your subconscious. It could be, the higher part of your brain, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't really matter. You could call it God too. I mean, it's all the same word in my opinion. But let's just call it the universe, because I like to think of it as a power above you, like something outside of your limited cognitive ability. And that could be the subconscious, because the subconscious is out of your, your normal cognitive ability, your normal consciousness, we'll call it. Anyways, the moral of the story is, I think when you start dreading stuff, that's your consciousness, or not your consciousness, your subconsciousness, universe, God, saying, hey, you're not on your right path. You need to switch. One thing I've been keeping in mind a lot is rehearsing this idea of I'm living my dream life. I'm living my dream life. And if you're living your dream life, there's certain things you're not going to do. Guys, that's it. That is the end of this podcast. I'll read all the stuff, basically, all the different points. I had a note here. Whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. That's a very powerful quote. Another thing is, instead of thinking this is the last day of my life, one idea I had is, what if you start thinking about today as the first day of the rest of your life? What if you woke up in the morning and said, hey, today's the first day of the rest of my life? Like, if you just snapped into this body and you said, wow, I'm going to make a major change, and today's the first day of the rest of my life, and you had almost like childlike eyes of wonder, what would you do? So maybe it's a Sunday and you wake up and you think, man, I've always wanted to go to this brunch place. This is the first day of the rest of my life. This is the first day of my life. Actually, maybe that's even a better way of saying it. Instead of thinking, what would you do on your last day? What would you do on your first day? If you woke up and this was the first day you've ever been in this body on earth, what would you do? And you knew you were going to spend the rest of your life in this body and on earth. Maybe you would go to that brunch place. Maybe you would start a new workout regimen. So here's all 30 of the lessons learned. Then we'll wrap up and all that fun stuff. So what works for others may not work for you. That's 1. 2, have multiple buckets. 3, focus on one variable at a time. 4, let it grow. 5, be grateful. 6, be unattached from outcomes. 7, you can't do it by yourself. 8, the intelligence of emotions. 9, having pillars, I think, is very important. Lesson 10, go with the flow. 11, it's worth paying money to save time, energy, or thought power. Cognitive load's another way of looking at that. Lesson 12, growing roots is important for me, at least. 13, routine is huge for me. 14, time to plan and think is very important. 15, take time off. 16, fill your life with new and awesome experiences. 17, you are a self-correcting learning machine. 18, work on your brain. 19, waking up early and exercising early for the win. 20, make small commitments. 21, create an end goal. 22, produce something you're proud of. 23, done is better than perfect. 24, become an experiment of one. Remember that you're an experiment of one, I guess. 25, listen to your body. 26, enjoy the journey. 27, yin and yang. Keep this principle in mind. 28, nothing is fully solvable. 29, work on what excites you. And 30, love your life. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Obviously, keep an eye out. The Passion Product Formula beta course will be coming out soon. It's going to be huge. I'm really, really excited about this course. Other than that, guys, enjoy your life. I hope you love life. And I need to remember this because I've been filming a vlog all day today. And to be honest, I haven't been enjoying it as much as I should, as I mentioned. So enjoy your life. Guys, email me. Let me know if this helps. And thank you. Have a great rest of your week.